Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm back with a very simple sketchbook painting. I'll be painting wildflowers today, and it's quite a simple piece and I actually really enjoyed painting it. So the first step is to paint the background, and I want a very dark background because I'll kind of like build the landscape later with lighter colors. So I'm painting this with, to get this shade of very dark green, I mixed blue with a little bit of black and green. Once the background has dried, I'm going to cover the top half of this painting in leaves. So for the color, I'm using like a shade of teal green. I mix blue, green and a little bit of white, and I'm using a size 00 brush. So the shape for this leaves that I'm drawing is kind of like an upside down W or like a little M shape. So it's like 3 leaves stuck together and branched out in like an M shape. And then once the first layer of leaves are done, I add a little bit more white to my teal green, and then I continue to draw more leaves on top of the first layer of leaves. Once that is done, I'm going to work on the bottom half. So this is going to be more leaves but facing upwards. So this shape of these leaves here are actually a little bit more different. So I'm using a smaller brush for this, size 000 brush. And here I'm using olive green. So I'm only going to cover this part, like half of the canvas, and then I'm going to add like a little thin vine of leaves on the top part. I want this to be like a little more delicate vine, so I'm just using the tip of the brush to create these very tiny leaves and this little vine draped across the shrub on top. I think the fun part about this landscape is that you have to just build it layer by layer, and then you go from dark to light. Like the first layer of leaves are always the darkest, and then you go a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter until the whole landscape is filled up. So at the bottom, I'm going to draw a few like swirly branches curving upwards, and then I'm going to continue to add more leaves on these vines. And to differentiate the leaves, I usually use like a different color. So right now we're on the second layer, so I'm using a lighter shade of green. So continue to add this like swirly branches sticking out from the shrub. And then at the bottom here, I'm going to create a different shape of leaves or wild stems poking up from below. So the whole idea of this is to give it like a very unruly, untouched and wildflower, wild bush kind of look. So for this patch here, I'm going to draw more leaves, but a different kind of leaf. So this is going to be a little bit bigger from all the other leaves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the leaves in like different directions because it's going to be like a big bush. Some of them are like 2 together, some 3 facing downwards or upwards. And I'm going to start with a darker shade of green first. And then I'm going to paint over the first layer in a lighter shade of green for the leaves. So this will help me create like a more dense effect. Once I've kind of covered that patch with that shape of leaves, I'm going to add more stems and this kind of like little swirly branches coming up from this set of leaves. And then I'm going to add this kind of like the tiny little leaves just poking out from this bush below. Just in the background to fill in some of the blank spaces and to kind of merge both these bushes together. And then I'm going to take a lighter shade of green and I'm going to draw more of the same type of leaves on these branches that are sticking out. So if you want to kind of like highlight it as this is the one that is in front, in the foreground, so you draw like the leaves for it. So like over here, these in front here are going to be like the lightest shade of green. And then for all these other black spaces behind on the background, I just take a little paintbrush and then I add all these other small leaves in between to give it a little bit more volume. The whole point of this is to make this as to make sure it looks dense and that it's a little bit more like not like just like 1D. There's a bit more dimension to it. And then what you can do is draw a little bit more smaller stems. For the stems, I want it to be very delicate, so I'm using an angular brush. And I find that it helps to get this really thin lines. And now it's the final part. We're going to add the wildflowers. I think it's up to you what colors you want the flowers to be, but for me I use white, and then I love purple and blue, so I mix purple blue with a little bit of white And I just kind of add a few more flowers below on the shrub and also on the stems. And then just to make it pop a little bit, I'm adding pink flowers on the top part of the bush. I feel in every painting there has to be like the focus point. So for this one, it'll be the pink flowers so that it will kind of like stand out a little bit. So to differentiate the flowers, I draw them in kind of like a little bit of a different shape. Some of them are bigger, some are tall, some are round, and it is finished. So this was a very, very simple piece. And now I'm just kind of adding a little bit of finishes and touches to kind of like fill up any spaces if it's needed, any blank spaces. And now that I'm satisfied, I just peel off the tape and it is done. So I hope you like this simple landscape, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Goodbye.